Damn it, Christian, we're not having this discussion again. Eggs exist, my man, okay? You can scramble them, you can devil them.
You can freeze them.
Sunny side up, over easy. There's literal evidence for eggs existing in my fridge, and I'm tired of you saying that they don't.
I thought we were talking about different eggs.
No, we were not, and you know it. How dare you? Folks, welcome back. Part 2 of active duty military stories, haunted bases, and all that fun stuff we are diving into once again, as you're well aware, unless you're just discovering this show now, part 2. And if you're starting here, what a weird place to start, friend, but we're not here to judge. We'll see you on the inside for more active duty military paranormal experiences and more. You are now entering the realm of the freaky deaky, an unsuspecting stop at the crossroads of fantasy and reality, where the frayed edges of make-believe seep into this cookie-cutter white picket world you've been led to believe is far from extraordinary. What you're about to hear are true stories.
Alleged true stories.
Christian, just... okay? Tales of the strange and inexplicable thought only to exist in film and folklore. Although difficult to accept, we do not know everything about this reality. About time or space, what lies beneath the ocean's depths. And try though we might, the unchanging truth remains. There are some things we legitimately cannot explain logically. Folks, welcome back to the show.
We never left.
We never left. We've been here the whole time. That's the level of dedication that you get out of two weirdos talking about ghosts in a converted garage. You know what I mean? If you're new to the show, welcome aboard, friends. You are in the right place. If you are a fan of paranormal experiences, dry humor, and nonsensical soundboard bites that, as I mentioned, make absolutely no sense, but do add, interestingly enough, to the experiences themselves and keep things fun. Isn't that nice? All we ask is that you check out the show, and if you enjoy what you hear, that you rate it 5 stars. People, this is really the only way to help us grow. Outside of subscribing on YouTube, and shout out to our YouTube audience. Thank you for being very active. You guys have been great. You know, we got some love from the hole. Always love getting love from the hole.
That's gross.
It is gross, and that's fine. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. We appreciate all the love we've been getting over the past few weeks here. And if you want to hear one of my personal experiences that was shared recently on Belief Hole's Strange Listener Stories, go check that out. I'm not sure the number. It's probably, Strange Listener Stories number 5,000 at this point, the way those guys are popular and whatnot. That must be nice. Beside the point, though, go check it out. It's a fun experience where I talk about a man that was in my pillowcase when I was a teenager or somewhere around that time. Very interesting story. And the guys in that episode, I have had that experience for years in the back of my head now. And literally, I learned more about my hometown in 5 minutes of that episode than I had known my entire life. And it's a great watch, and those guys are amazing. And if you do not listen to Belief Hole, they're probably the only other awkwardly named podcast out there in our genre. And I forget who brought that up to me, but it was in our Facebook group for sure. It's either Teresa. I think it was Teresa. I think it was. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry about that. My memory is that of a flea, so it's fleeting. Haha, wordplay. That's fine. Send in your personal stories to the gang at thefreakydeaky.com. We are preparing for Volume 7 of Freaky Listener Stories, and we are, for the first time in the show's history, Christian, we have more stories than can fill an episode. So guess what? We're trying to get to the point where we release those at least once a month, and for the last 4 years, we've barely been scraping by, and we're like, we finally have enough, and it's been a few months, let's release another one. But now, people are starting to send them in more. We got some doozies coming up in Volume 7 and 8. And if you want to be a part of any of those, send your story to the gang at thefreakydeaky.com. Find us on social media at FreakyDeakyPod. If you're on YouTube, you can comment your story as well. I can take it from there and add it into a volume. Just be sure to specify that if you want it. Say, yeah, put this in a listener story. This is what happened to me, blah, blah, and we will take it from there. Join the Facebook group. And now that all that's out of the way, let's get into some more of these stories. I was going to start this out with a cold open, but that's not the case.
It's going to be warm instead.
It's going to be a warm open because I'm telling you about it. Anyway, the first story is called A Wholesome Message and a Satanic Ceremony.
Those are the best.
And it's by Seth Distro. Yeah, and I figured Christian would like this one because he likes anything that has to do with Satan. Anyway, so girl was on the first floor of my barracks that were the female rooms, and she encountered a spirit or something in the form of an old African-American woman. It told her its name and told her to give a message to, let's say, Corrine Brown. Not the actual name of the person, of course, just not saying their real name. The only person by that name was the PLT, Sergeant. on CQ, charge of quarters, that night. She approached the sergeant right after it happened, describing in uncanny detail to her grandmother's complexion, name, and the message. She didn't say exactly what it was, but she remarked that it was very personal and that the NCO burst into tears after she told her of this encounter. The night before, and I'm not saying these are related, but some interesting fellows of mine decided to have a little, satanic ceremony with the whole pentagram on the floor and whatnot. They invited me to this, but I refused.
Do you think it was actually satanic and not something like the Lima that someone interpreted as satanic? I mean, maybe they said satanic because
there's a pentagram involved.
Well, I mean, but other forms of belief use a pentagram.
I love how unironically you're playing the devil's advocate involving a satanic ceremony.
I am.
Beautiful and on brand for you, for sure.
But also, there are a decent amount of people in the military that
love the devil.
I don't know if it's love the devil, but they have an alternative lifestyle view, because most people that practice Satanism don't actually believe in the devil.
That's what you say, but you've probably met like 8 Satanists in your life. So you're not exactly the source of information on that. That's fine.
I mean, there's plenty of fake Satanists. I guess they'd be real Satanists if they actually believe in that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think most of the people that might call themselves Satanists just belong to like the Satanic Church or...
Yeah, there's a hefty amount of those. My dad was telling me about one of his old coworkers that was a part of it for the irony or something like that.
Yeah, and that's kind of the whole point. Of
certain people, sure.
That group.
I will say that there are folks that don't believe in that, but just want it for the funny haha effect. That's fine. We're not going to go down the religious rabbit hole 8 minutes into the episode. We're going to actually hold off on that probably till near the end where we start questioning each other's beliefs, but that's fine. They invited me to this, but I refused. I'm not religious, but spiritual. And to me, I just don't see what one has to gain from it. Plus, what if the devil actually exists? Now you're fucked.
That is kind of true.
That is kind of true. Anyway, one could feel something weird in the halls after that. It was all just too coincidental. So that's a fun little...
I think that one's... What if something like that doesn't necessarily open up a portal...
To hell?
To hell, but especially to people that are more sensitive to certain things. Hell. Yeah. People that are more sensitive to certain things might feel a darkness because their focus is more on their surroundings because of this satanic ritual.
So you think that because this person was aware that it happened, that maybe they were just convincing themselves that something felt darker in the halls or whatever afterwards?
I mean, if you're a believer that is a bad thing or not necessarily a good thing, then it might. I mean, that's...
Sure, I'm not putting you down for it. That's possible.
Yeah. Even me, who's not religious...
Really? I thought you were all this time.
Has been brought up in a Christian way to where some of those same irrational fears sometimes creep in that most Americans deal with.
That's right, yeah.
So
the devil's always watching, Christian.
I mean...
He looks at you and he says...
Rub my large head.
And you say, come at me, bro.
I do.
I'm not saying that anytime there's a pentagram involved that you're conjuring the devil, but I also have enough common sense in me to know that it could be. Maybe not the devil in this instance, but you could be, bringing in some evil entities or some malevolent forces that maybe you don't want to trifle with.
I mean, you could open up those portals in your brain that has the demons that you usually keep in the closet, skeletons and all that with the skeleton.
Yeah, demons and skeletons. Weird closet, I'm finding out. But
especially because it's in your head.
Ah, yes, of course. Come research my large head. Let's get into something that's not the devil so we can stop talking about that just in case Ellen's still out there listening.
Degenerous?
We can only hope not. We can only hope that she doesn't listen because she's annoying as hell, and that's fine. Anyway, this next one is called There's Always Work to Be Done, and it's by Generals 7. You're going to love this one. It involves science.
Nice.
Your favorite. You nerd? No, it's fine. Anyway, it says, I worked in a lab in a military hospital, a relatively old military hospital. When I started working there, all my coworkers, military and civilian, would tell me stories of odd and paranormal happenings in said lab. Usually it was the typical doors shutting, lights flickering, odd noises type of thing. well, I never really believed in all that. And as a matter of fact, I just pushed my glasses up to my face and I said, well, actually, the data points to... No, that's not what he says. He says, plus it seemed like a hazing thing, so I just smiled and carried on. Well, fast forward about a year, I'm fully trained on all the sections and am assigned to the night shift. Not a bad or not a good idea. Not a good time. Essentially, I work all alone in the lab from 1500 to 0100, which if anyone needs information, that's 3 p.m. to 1 a.m. I'm completely alone. For the first months, it's completely normal. Well, all of a sudden, at about the 6-month mark, weird stuff starts happening. The lights, noises, etc., but nothing that I couldn't really say was for sure unexplainable. Well, after a week of weirdness, I'm sitting at a desk in the center of a core lab just looking at some paperwork during a lull. I hear what sounds like footsteps and the door opening to what sounds like micro. It's on the other side of the lab, maybe 10 meters away, but there are shelves and stuff in the way of direct sight. At this point, I assume it's cleaning, maintenance, or possibly a coworker who came back, so I get up to check just because I'm curious. I walk over to get a line of sight, and I see the back of a tall man in a white lab coat walking into micro. This at the time wasn't super weird, but still odd since I didn't recognize him, at least from behind. I don't really recognize those glutes, my friend. Are you from around here? I say to him, no. So I go in there to see who it is. Micro is empty, completely empty. I saw him go in and there isn't another exit or entrance. At this point, I'm a little freaked out, but managed to work the rest of my shift without losing it. I mean, I know what I saw, but maybe I was just tired or something, I don't know. Well, next day I mentioned it to some coworkers. They seemed just as terrified as I should be. They then proceed to explain how Micro's supervisor husband had died many years ago and that there's a, quote, rumor that he still hangs around. Micro's supervisor is this really, really old lady who has been there a very long time. At this point, several things start making sense and freak me out even more. The person I saw was wearing a white lab coat. We all wear blue lab coats. The lab used to wear white coats in the 80s. This man was really tall. Apparently the supervisor's dead husband was really tall. Whatever, was walking into Micro. Seriously, I'm still freaking out about it now. I still can't explain it. And I can explain everything because I love science and that's what it does.
Did they ever explain what micro is?
I believe it's when you work on very tiny things.
So the microscope thing?
I have no idea. I just pulled that out of my ass.
Okay.
So, no, there's a lot of things. Like, there's a few things I looked up as far as like terminologies and whatnot, because the military has like a million of them where they're just like, yeah, so it's at PCB and then WT poo poo bing 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 bong, and I'm like, what? What does that mean, man?
When I'm at work and security guys are talking to each other because they're all former military guys, it's like you hear all those things.
It's like, hey, bro, hey, how about you lighten it up for the rest of us, huh?
And then they look at you and be like, this isn't meant for civilians.
Yeah. You're like, well, guess I'll be on my way then. Some weird, real Rudolph energy going on in this establishment, I'm finding. Now, that would be kind of weird to see, like, especially when, like, the correlations between the 80s and then where it's like, we wear blue coats now. Back then, they wore white coats.
I thought it was kind of funny that it was like, she's a really old lady and her husband worked here a long time ago. And it was the 80s. I'm like, for me, the 80s sometimes still feels like not that long ago.
That's true. At least the second 80s, yeah.
At least the late 80s. Yeah. But it's fascinating. Also, what the hell's her husband doing there? Did he work there?
Well, yeah, that's what they said, is that, like, pretty much that he was one of the main folks that was part of that.
And does that mean the old lady can't ever have another partner? Can't flirt with guys at work because the husband's there all the time?
I mean,
that just totally, like,
look, maybe
they had a pact.
Yeah, that's
she would never love another man, and he would always come to work with her.
Continue working. Yeah. You keep working, and I'll keep all the strange away from me.
Yeah.
Now that is, I don't know, man.
Sounds like a comedy show, actually.
Yeah. You know what I don't like? The idea of working in the afterlife. That's like at number one on the list of things that I do not want to be doing in the afterlife, working. So can you imagine dying and then for the rest of eternity, you're just wearing a white lab coat and walking into this like lab?
Between the two of us in the afterlife, that would be you.
Working?
Yeah. I'd be like, Scott, come hang out on this beautiful cloud.
Wow.
Let's look at California City
Hmm.
from this cloud.
Weird choices we're making.
I mean, it's only one cloud and it's going to dissipate because it's the desert soon. So we better get on it and look at your old hometown. And you're going to be like, nope, man.
Yeah.
I'm editing the paranormal podcast from the great beyond.
No, I'll sit on the cloud with you for a few moments and be like, would you just look at that shithole? What a shithole.
I mean,
what a horrible place to be raised for 21 years of your life. Anyway, back to my work.
Antelope Valley is kind of fascinating because Lake LA is similar to Lake Los Angeles is similar to like where you grew up.
Yeah.
It's like this place that somebody had these like great plans some developer did.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just too far away from anything good.
And they didn't pull it off successfully, which also hurts it, but that's fine.
And they didn't realize that those places aren't going to be as popular, so they're not going to have the high-end home buyers they had told their investors they would.
Weird jab at my parents, but that's fine.
No, I mean, my dad lived out in Lake LA, and
that's true.
Back when that place was started, it actually had a lake.
And it was LA.
No, an hour and a half from LA, but
that's fine. All I'm trying to say,
will be working in the afterlife.
No, I will tell you this right now. I will not be working. I have literally maybe one day off a month, and I will not carry that into the afterlife. If anyone asks me to do anything, the answer is no.
What's funny is you work on a totally different level than me, but I'm like,
well, people call it elite.
You know? I kind of have maybe one day off a month too sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, not that keeping an eye on my grandson is work.
It's kind of work, though, at the same time.
Not for me. I have fun, but that's because I'm a grandparent.
Sure.
But getting up early is not fun.
No.
Hell no.
Anyway.
Also, if we have my boss on here, maybe I can convince her that I need to work during the day on Friday.
Or our listeners could.
Ooh.
There you go. And this next one is called Be Safe.
Boys, be safe.
And it's by My Name's Not Chase.
Wrap it up.
Wow. This is kind of the show for that, but at the same time not. Anyway.
I was just practicing my outro. I don't know what you're thinking.
Wow. I had just finished my initial military training, basic AIT, a few other classes, and got sent to my first duty station. Duty. Wow. Grow up, Scott. My unit was at N2C for pre-deployment training, so I met up with the rear echelon. I get issued my room and spent 3 very disturbed days and nights in the barracks with weird stuff happening, like gear not where I left it, locked drawers being opened, the microwave turning on by itself, shit like that. My roommate, who I knew throughout training, showed up on the 4th day, and I told him something along the lines of, watch your shit. Someone's been fucking with my stuff and I don't know who. So the 4th night comes around and myself and my roommate secure our room and gear and go to bed. Gotta be up at 05:30 for PT, so it's an early night. We lock all our stuff and go to bed. I woke up around 1 a.m. because my blanket had fallen to the ground and I was cold, which was weird because we were in the South in summer, so it's always hot. I hopped down to get my blanket and I noticed my armoire is open. So I open the lock, close it, lock it, and get back to bed. I fell back asleep pretty easy, but I woke up again at around 2:30, and all my stuff and my roommate's stuff is thrown around the room. I wake up my roommate and he's pissed because someone is fucking with us and can't figure out who it is. We clean it up, lock our stuff, and go back to bed. I woke up a 3rd time at 3:37, and we're not alone. I can hear my roommate snoring, so I know it's not him. I sat up and saw someone in the little kitchenette area with the fridge open looking in it. I was freezing again. I was about to say something as the soldier turned around. My eyes had a moment to adjust to the bright light, and I started recognizing gear like the L-shaped flashlight on his shoulder, his Alice pack with magazine holders and canteens, boots and fatigues. This dude was combat ready. As my eyes reached his face, he turned a bit and I could see it. Half his head and helmet were gone. Blown off by the looks of it. I'm scared shitless at this point. He closed the fridge, walked across the room, keeping his bright green eyes on, opened my front door and walked out. As he exited, he turned back around and said to me, "Be safe." I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I didn't wake up my roommate up. I just sat up in bed for about 2 hours till I had to get ready for PT. 6:30 rolls around, so everyone is outside the barracks in formation getting ready to start PT, and the acting first sergeant says, "Hey, not Chase. You good? Looks like you've seen a ghost." I replied with negative, "I'm fine, first sergeant, good to go." About halfway through PT, he comes up to me and asks me what's wrong because I'm visibly shaken up. I told him I was fine, just couldn't sleep last night. A few others asked if I was okay, and I just lied and said I was fine. I really wasn't, and they could see that, but they let me be. After PT ended, the acting first sergeant pulled me to the side and told me to, quote, speak freely, openly, and with all confidentiality and off the record. What is wrong? I told him that if I told him what happened, he would think I'm batshit crazy. He assured me it was off record and once again said, talk to me. You seriously look like you've seen a ghost. That got an awkward chuckle out of me, and I began to tell him my story. When I got to the part about his head, the acting first sergeant lost his shit. He said, who the fuck put you up to this? This is not funny, etc. He smoked me for about 30 minutes, made me do push-ups, mountain climbers, all that stuff, all while yelling at me that I'm a piece of shit. Hey, this is all confidential. You can talk to me freely. Well, this is what I saw. You piece of shit, get on the ground.
I understand. I think I know where this is going now, though.
So finally, after about 30 minutes of that, he says, look at me in the eye and swear on everything that you love that you're not lying to me. I told him I was not lying. It fucking happened. He says, follow me. So I do. We get to the command office, which I had never been in, and they were obviously locked. He takes me behind 3 locked doors and 3 rooms I had never stepped foot in. And when he opened the last door, I saw it. It gave me chills. It still gives me chills, but plain as day, there's the soldier's portrait behind the commander's desk. I froze and said, that's him. Acting first sergeant, the guy who assigned me that room, told me who it was. He was a corporal in the unit on my unit's first deployment to Iraq, and he died in an IED attack that took off part of his head. I was the first soldier to be assigned that room since it belonged to the deceased corporal. He forgave me and I forgave him, and he told me some stories about who this guy was. I deployed with that unit just a couple months later and spent 12 months fighting in that shithole. I nearly died. I don't know how many times. My vehicle got hit with IEDs and rockets, and it always made me think of that corporal. I survived more things than most people can imagine, and I always felt like that corporal was keeping an eye out for me. Not everyone in my unit was as lucky as me. 3 from my company didn't get to come home. Those are always fascinating stories, man.
That one's a pretty good one.
Yeah. Just the fact he sees this guy in a fridge or whatever, and he's like, what the fuck is this dude all combat ready? And then when he turns around, half his head's gone. Leaving, just be like, hey, be safe.
That just gave me like True Detective season 4 vibes. I don't think you've watched it yet.
Still haven't, no, but we need to because we're out of shows.
There's a part in there.
Spoilers, it feels. Coming in hot from Christian. Wow.
There's a part in there that is similar with the head part of the soldier.
Cool.
But it's the way they do it is just like we've heard stories like that and we kind of have an image in our head, but when you see it put in film, sometimes it's like, ooh, that's much worse than I thought, or creepier.
They really do be like that.
That one's fascinating.
That's a good one. I like that one a lot.
And also, when I first moved to Alaska, I worked at a hotel here, and our security had served in Iraq. And he told me about being hit with IEDs, and wow. Yeah. Like, talk about maybe something like one of the most terrifying things in the world.
I can only imagine, yeah.
And I think, if I remember right, like he got injured pretty bad, but a couple of his fellow soldiers didn't make it out of it. But like, wow.
Yeah. So do you think it was a warning then? Or do you think just like a heads up? Because
just be safe. I mean, sounds like what you need to. I mean, it's really easy, I think, in the fog of war to do things that aren't quite as safe.
True.
So a friendly reminder from a fellow soldier might be just what somebody needed. That's
just what the doctor ordered.
Yeah, before they're deployed.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a really fascinating story. Especially, as fucked up as it is, like, I understand why, the sergeant did what he did, but like, just to like reel this guy in, being like, hey, this is a safe space, friend. What's on your mind?
Well, I think he felt like maybe the soldiers were messing with him, and he had to do what they do in the military. Yeah. Is put you through information. Put you through some crap to make sure, is it really worth sticking by this story?
Yeah.
Most times it wouldn't be.
It's like 300 push-ups later. He's like, dude, I swear I saw the thing. Please.
Yeah.
Please, I'm begging you.
That'd be extra scary in a Twilight Zone kind of way to have a soldier remind or say that to you before you're deployed. Like, what?
It's like a harbinger of doom, or is it
do I need this? Am I normally not going to be safe over there? And then you get hit with IEDs and rockets when you're driving around, and might have it take on a totally different meaning.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure it does. Anyway, this next one is called 3 Identical Contractors. Or were they? That's by KS Badger. More mildly creepy than paranormal, and not a situation that was in any way unique to the military, but here's mine. Camp Byrd, Kuwait, in 2015. My friend and I were driving through an open area and saw 3 what appeared to be contractors working through the area. My friend, a very serious 18-year-in Sergeant First Class, noticed them first and goes, "What the fuck?" So I turned to look at them and was immediately struck with an uneasy feeling in the pit of my stomach. They looked exactly alike, like they could have been triplets, and they walked with a synchronized and very articulated gait.
Men in black.
They were wearing sunglasses, so I'm not sure if they were looking at us, but they didn't turn their heads and continued walking toward the airfield. Everything about them was the same. Their clothes and sunglasses, hair color and style, height, weight, skin tone, everything. Using the latest in Microsoft Paint technology, I have constructed a rough sketch of what they look like. And the hilarious thing is this image that was constructed is generic looking bodies with the face of DB Cooper.
So it is Men in Black.
That's kind of what it seemed like, yeah. But
or I think in Fringe, they were more like the Watchers, but similar character.
Yeah. So he says it was very odd, and my friend and I still talk about it to this day. They gave him the same feeling. Byrd is a crowded but comparatively small base. You tended to see the same people again and again, especially if you lived in your pad, but we never saw them again.
Contractor.
Byrd and Kuwait are not interesting or terribly important places. If the Army or DOD was going to roll out some crazy Terminator killbots, that would have been the last place to do it. The only thing I can think of is that 3 brothers deployed in the National Guard, or they were contractors for some company or something and just wanted to fuck with people. It's just very odd. Other than the amazing disappearing specialist, I've never seen anything profoundly paranormal in the US or Afghanistan. And you know what's really interesting about this story is when he says that they all walked in like synchronized fashion with like interesting gait and stuff. I'm reminded of, there's a phenomena, I want to say it's called the mirrored men or something like that. I think they're usually hooded, but I it's been a while since I've heard the stories, but yeah, it's called like the mirrored men. Most of the stories that have come out about them, it's always someone like waking up in the middle of the night or something like that and looking out their bedroom window and like walking down the street is like 3 identical entities walk in a synchronized fashion. They all look the exact same. And it's just like this weird feeling that they give off. But I've only ever heard stories, I forget what podcast it was, but I've only ever heard a few of those stories. And every time I do, I'm like, wow, that is a really fascinating thing to witness. And then when I came across this story, I was like, holy shit, it's like a weird, like contractor, military, mirrored men story. And especially because they didn't have any, it's a small enough base or whatever. You kind of, the folks that are around there. And granted, contractors would come and go, I'm sure. But that in particular is very strange.
That would be pretty crazy. But also, I'm sticking with my like Men in Black theory. That'd be a perfect area because that's where a lot of sightings are going on, which are probably, like I said, drones and military stuff mostly. But also, we've seen a couple videos that you can't really tell what you're looking at, but it's flying kind of weird in that region.
Yeah.
So, who knows?
It would make a lot of sense to have that type of, I guess, folks around, Men in Black type people.
Yeah. That'd be a good place to put them. I mean, there's a lot of our military in that region.
That's true.
I have a friend that's going to be a contractor in Iraq here in about 6 months to a year. We should I was thinking we should send a batch of stickers with them.
That would be amazing. Yeah.
He would probably give them out too. He's the one that lives right up the street from you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Just walk right down there when we're done recording with some stickers.
He always told me if I'm ever out walking Atlas, just pop in.
Nice.
So
there you go. You hear that, friends? Stickers are coming. Da-na-na-na.
We're sending some to Iraq. He's going to work at the embassy there too.
Oh, even better. All right, this next one is from Fresh MZ3, and it's called BMTs and the Slender Man.
BMT?
Yeah, a BMT is a basic military training.
Oh, it was like bacon, mayo, and tomatoes? I don't know.
Weird sandwich choice, yes, but yeah, go for it, I guess. It says, obviously everyone has a BMT.
I have not.
For lunch. No. Basic military training ghost story, but mine's trippy. 324 TRS at this point was years overdue for being retired and was overall very eerie at night. We had been told countless times about the amount of people who took their lives there, which obviously didn't help. AC was broken every single night, and typically it was 95 plus in the dorm. But this night, it was in the 30s, if I had to guess, despite being hot that day. 3 a.m., I'm on EC, which is entry controller. In basic military training, they are responsible for ensuring only authorized personnel are granted access to the dorms. Flashlight goes out, and the other EC supposed to be on with me was nowhere to be seen, so I walk back toward my bed on the opposite side of the dorm and hear creaking behind me. I turn around, and one of the dorm guys was sitting up in his bed staring straight at me, speaking in an incomprehensible language. He later denied remembering this. Creepy as fuck, so I turn back around and see this Slender Man almost figure, but more stick-like, and on the ceiling. At this point, I'm completely tripped out. Not even 30 seconds later, the fire alarm goes off. We all wake up and evacuate the whole procedure or whatever. The next morning, my MTI questioned me about it because apparently it was my dorm that it was pulled in. I was on EC when it went off, and the alarm was right beside my bed. No one pulled it. I was bedside when it went off. I'll swear that on my life. The creepiest part was once the fire department showed up, our dorm was locked and they weren't able to get in. None of the keys worked or anything, but they were fine again the next morning. Still don't know what the hell happened that night, but there was some paranormal shit going on, and I didn't sleep for what felt like days after. Weird the keys would stop working, doors don't open. Like what the hell is this entity, this weird stick man, weird slender figure, and what is the purpose behind that? You know what I mean? Like it's just hard to, I don't know, the pieces, they're not falling into place for me, and your boy needs help. So if y'all have answers out there, comment. If you're on YouTube watching and listening or whatever, what the hell do you think this thing is?
Did he say the stick man was on the wall?
Yeah, like on the wall ceiling type thing.
Like Hereditary style? Which
creepy.
Yeah, that was a creepy scene.
Yeah, one of many in Hereditary, yes. But yeah, I don't know. It's always like, I get confused by story, not confused, but just like fascinated by these. Like, I mean, you think the same thing with like Mothman and stuff like that, where it's almost like omens. This is a very quick one, obviously, but the fact that you see something and then something goes down, it's like, is there a correlation there, or is it just coincidence that you happen to see this weird stick demon entity and then the alarm gets pulled and all this weird shit goes down?
I'm going to go with coincidence on this one. This story is not quite as convincing as some of our others.
That's weird. Yeah, usually you just hop in. You're like, strange, paranormal, otherworldly. I'm in.
I am in. I just don't believe them all.
You're just along for the ride.
Yes.
Like a strange tourist.
I am. Now let's look at the oddities and absurdities.
And maybe a book of the English language while we're at it.
That would help.
Yeah, it's fascinating though. I mean, it's got to be something weird, right? It's got to be something the keys don't work the next day. Like, or when the fire department gets there, the keys don't work, doors don't open. Like, what is that? How is that? What kind of strange coincidence would it happen to be? What would have to take place for keys to just stop working in the doors? What does the door inflate? Is it get too cold and but that would shrink it, right?
I would just say the fire department, the base fire department, didn't have the correct keys, but whoever came in the next morning did. How's that? I debunked. Christian debunked this one.
Wow. Really patting yourself on the back. I think, first of all, I don't know that it was the fire department using the keys. It's probably the people that are in the dorms have the keys to the dorms. And so if that doesn't work, then it's them. It's their keys. And then their keys worked in the morning.
I would almost think that there's a military fire department on site. And they might have various keys.
I have never heard of the fire department using keys. I think they just use their boots.
It'd be different, like on a base, though. Especially if you have alarms going off all the time. You have to check them out. You don't want to go breaking doors. U.S. taxpayers like their money to go to black ops.
I was going to say,
not to repairs.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't think the taxpayers, that's what they're worried about. Like, wait, you're spending it on what, doors?
This is the 10th door this year. Wow. We use our money to fund the cocaine runners and then funnel that into our black ops like we did in the 80s.
Yeah, billions, trillions of dollars.
Yeah, taxpayers get upset when you spend it on like doors and hammers
on
and toilet
shit. Yeah. Use it on stuff that we can't ever track. That's our favorite. Sorry for getting political on you folks. I hope we haven't.
That's not political. That's just the way the world works.
Wow. And birds aren't real, but it's fine. Anyway.
They're drones.
Drones aren't real. They're birds.
Listening devices in the form of feathered friends.
Wow.
What do you think the ones that are out in the middle of nowhere listen to, though? Or watch? Are those fake birds watching for entities that the rest of us can't see, and that's how they keep us safe?
No.
Do you ever think of that?
No, I think birds are very much real, Christian.
I think so too. The earth is flat, though.
Wow. Okay. Now we're getting weird. And to the 3 listeners that remain, thank you. This next story is called A Haunting Winter at the South Pole. Ooh.
I don't know if I've ever heard a paranormal story from the South Pole.
Well, you're in for a treat because we got one today. And it's from user 1729. And it goes a little something.
Is that you, Irene?
Before I was in the Guard, I almost said ground. Wow. That would have been weird. Now, that's a crazy story.
Especially in Antarctica. It's hard to dig there.
It's frowned upon, yeah. That's impossible.
Right.
Unless you have, you know, we're not going to get into it. Before I was in the Guard, I was wintering over at the South Pole Station. This was way back in the mid-2000s. Way back in the mid-2000s. Anyway, we had a crew of about 50, and I was the station engineer. In a group that small, stuck together for 9 months, at least 13 plus with others, you get to know everyone by the way they wear their clothes, their walk. You can figure out who someone is or who someone might be from a distance based on where they are and when, etc.
That is totally true. I can tell you from working on the North Slope.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you, in that environment, you can pick somebody out from a long ways away just by the way they move because you're around them so much.
Yeah. It's really interesting how everyone has different walking patterns. And like, I don't know, I could always see it in like my family and stuff. My dad, my brother had a similar walk, and I'll catch myself doing it sometimes. I'm like, oh, I got that weird dorky walk going on right now.
I have my dad's dorky walk.
No, it's not fun. It's not fun, but that's fine.
And my son skates a lot like me, just faster.
That makes sense. Seeing as how his youthful, young legs, you know?
True. Not anymore, though. He's
because you're a robot. You're half robot. Now you have an advantage.
I'm not a robot.
Christian, let's call it what it is.
I am
Bionic Man.
Kind of like, is it like a cyborg?
Sure. Whatever you want to call it, honestly. It's your robot leg. So.
I have a screw, a screen, and a bunch of metal in my knee. Like my kneecap's not even real. And when I hit it a certain way, I can hear it clank.
Wow. The more you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, being the engineer, I knew just about all the passageways and emergency exits, and also knew who was on rounds during what week, etc. My office was in the power plant, and I was walking out to our water well called the Rodwell. Wow, what a fancy name for water. It was dark, always dark in the winter, moonless, and probably negative 80 degrees. The best way to navigate is to just turn off your light, let your eyes adjust, and try not to fall over. As I'm walking, I hear the clunk of a hatch on an emergency exit from our utilidor open.
Utilidor, that's crazy.
Utilidor.
I've only heard that word used one time, and it was on the slope.
Well, then I'm glad I pronounced it properly.
You did.
Sounds like a Batman gadget. Get the utilidor. Then I see someone climb out and start walking the direction of our RF facility, another half mile, and then off station. At the time, there are maybe 4 people who this could have been, 2 women and 2 guys. It was definitely a man, and it was definitely not the one who we called Fat Bob. Yeah, well, that's definitely not Fat Bob because he's not disgustingly overweight. Anyway, sorry, Fat Bob. I hollered and got no reply, which isn't that unusual. Sound can travel weird out there, and with the hoods pulled up and the wind, hearing can be super directional. I just completely didn't recognize the person, but didn't think much of it at the time. Checked the boiler and the Rodwell. Rodwell is a really hard word for me to say, especially right after. That's fine. Checked the boiler and the Rodwell and went back to the galley to get some coffee, and the one person I thought it could have been was sitting in there and hadn't been on the rounds. I checked on some other people and radioed out to RF, and no one had been there. Not sure it's a ghost story, but still a complete freaky mystery that I still think about almost 20 years later. We speculated that if it were a ghost, it could be the ghost of Rodney Marks, since after he died, his body was kept in the fuel arch, which would be accessed through the utilidor, or Casey Jones, who was killed in a place called the Blue Room, adjacent to the fuel arch. Ghosts in the South, huh? The Deep South. That's the Deep South.
Very deep south.
The deepest South.
Maybe it's one of Admiral Byrd's men that lost their lives in that region.
You know, it's really funny. You mentioned that. I just saw a video pop up on Facebook, and it was like the last interview with Admiral Byrd before he died. The video is pretty much saying, like, Admiral Byrd died very recently after this interview talking about Hollow Earth and the entities he met there. Within a year of his death, NASA was created. And then within 2 years of his death, the treaty in the Antarctic was created. And it was like, interesting timing on it. Someone commented, let me see. It says, Admiral Byrd dies in 1957. NASA's created in 1958. Antarctic Treaty created in 1959. Very interesting. That is very interesting.
Sounds like a coincidence. Also, well, we have the story of Admiral Byrd's experiences there. There's no proof that he actually experienced that because I don't believe he ever talked about it in interviews. That was supposedly his journal that was found.
Well, then who was that video with the interviewer?
I mean, he did interviews, but I'm not sure that he ever talked about Hollow Earth. I'd have to do some double checking.
Yeah, maybe not Hollow Earth. He did talk about people. I didn't hear the entire thing. I was sitting outside and I had to come inside. But the part I did catch, it was like old black and white interview with whoever. And yeah, he was talking about entities that he met or whatever, talking about this expedition and all that shit. I'm like, it's really fascinating stuff. Like I go back and forth on Hollow Earth. It's, like I said, probably my favorite story.
I love Hollow Earth. It makes no sense.
But much like a lot of things we talk about, turns out they make no sense, you know?
But also when I realized by watching films that King Kong is from Hollow Earth, I kind of like the way they did it in the newer King Kong
movies. Now
movie.
you do believe because King Kong.
No, but it kind of like, okay, this is how it works. I can get behind this a little bit. It still makes no sense. And
yeah, but what does, honestly, after almost 200 episodes of this podcast, Christian, what the fuck does make sense, you know?
Hollow Earth does not make sense on any level. And if it existed, wow, that would just totally
that'd be dope, though. It's a little dope. Yeah,
it would be scary the way we'd have to change our thinking to be able to accept something that.
Now, do you think that's perhaps why it's kept a secret?
No.
Same with like extraterrestrial life and whatnot.
It's kept a secret because that's where all the monsters are. And like I think we said in the last episode, sometimes they come through a portal in Maine, sometimes up in Nome, Alaska. Nah, man.
Anyway, I got to close this out. I got a final nice little short one locally. It's Haunting at JBER. Ooh. And you know what's really interesting is before I get it, it's literally like a paragraph and a half. It's a very short story. But when I was looking through it, a couple of comments with people were asking where it was at, what the hangar was located or whatever. And one of the coworkers that I used to have just got a job on base. And so he left within, a month or so back. The location that this haunting took place is the exact same hangar that this dude went to. And so I'm like, I got to reach out to him back. Hey, let me know if you experience anything weird while you're out there,
I have some of the guys I work with might know about this.
There we go. I don't think I put it in here, but I got to put I got to find what that place was called.
Yeah, let me know when you do, because even Bob might know about that one.
Well, there you go. And like I say, it's a very short story, not a ton of detail, but I just because they said it was JBER, I'm like, I got to throw it in there just for.
And for those of you
locals
that don't know, JBER is right near us.
We pass it whenever we go to Anchorage.
Which I have not been to Anchorage in months.
Hey, let me tell you something. You're not missing out on much. It's a shithole.
I mean, it's fine. There's things that are cool out there, but it's a long drive.
Yeah.
When I think about driving to Anchorage, I'm like,
how much do I have to pack?
Well, it's like that drive is what I used to like basically driving almost to LA when we were in California where we live.
No. Oh, where you live, maybe. Me is like, California City is like 2.5 hours from that. I'm like,
yeah, if I was on near the freeway or the back way, it didn't take that long.
Yeah, that checks out.
Valencia was like 40 minutes away in my little fast car.
Okay. Anyway, this is Haunting at JBER, Alaska, and it's by Charles the 12th of Spherige.
The 12th of a circle? I don't know, man.
No, Sverige.
Oh, maybe it's Alaska. I don't know, man.
I was looking, I was like, how the fuck do I, like, it's like Sven, but with erige at the end.
Yeah, sounds Scandinavian.
There you go. We figured it out. Or not. Anyway, one corner of our shop in JBER used to be a morgue. On mid-shift, the motion sensor lights would come on that end of the hangar, and we'd look at the cameras and find no one there. One of my old supervisors also had a video of a door slowly unlocking in the same shop with no one around but him. Freaky shit. Yeah, like I said, nice little short one. But, oh man, I hope this show grows locally to the point where we can start just reaching out to random folks within our area and seeing if we just go look into places. On base, probably not likely for us, but you never know. If we get some military folks listening to this that happen to work on JBER or I don't know. Anything's possible.
I have a friend that'll take us urban exploring. I'll just tell him find us a place that's supposed to be haunted.
Is that where you pick fruits and whatnot off the ground?
No, that's where you go into like abandoned places and explore.
Nice. Sounds like a great place to get asbestos. Well, I was doing as best as I can, but I couldn't think of the word for way too long. It's fine.
Limited exposures may not be that bad.
Yeah, it's fine, I'm sure.
And that's what we can wear a mask. Pretend it's the old days, like a couple years ago.
Yes, the old days of a couple years ago. Good times.
Long ago when we had to wear masks. My glasses fogged a lot.
There you go. Isn't that nice?
Yeah. No, it wasn't.
Yeah, I don't miss that. I don't miss that at all. Amongst other things in those times, what I do miss is making filthy amounts of money with my business during a very horrible time in the world. Not sure how that happened or why that happened, but
a lot of people did.
I know, but those were like big businesses and whatnot. I'm talking a very small operation. Though some of my best earnings were during COVID, which makes 0 sense.
It actually makes a lot of sense
for you, maybe,
because everybody was sitting at home ordering shit.
They're like, "Do I need beard care products right now?" Yeah, hell yeah, I do, man. There's a plague outside. My beard's got to look fresh.
Yeah,
it's got to look funky fresh. This episode is brought to you by anointedak.com. You're welcome. Anyway,
our first sponsor.
I know it took a lot of convincing to get him on board, but I finally did it. Not only that, I was like, "You're incredibly attractive, my friend." And then we made love. All right.
I was going to go a different way. Like, that guy's a jerk. I don't know how you got through to him.
Yeah, he's great. He's the best lover I ever had. Anyway,
that's gross.
Ew, gross.
She's going to hell.
No.
So that's all I got for you. So what do you think of those? Hit me with your best shot.
I'm like trying to wait, which episode was that one?
Which episode was that one?
Yeah, because we've done a lot of I'm like trying to think which story I liked out of this episode.
Oh, you were thinking back on like 6 months ago and you're like, I like that story.
No, because we just did that other military one. What about the...
that was last week, Christian.
Yeah, I know.
That was definitely last week.
I know. That's where I'm telling you in confidentiality, off the record, don't make me do push-ups. That, I can't... I was going to, like the ghost at the refrigerator I liked a lot.
Yeah, it was last week. No,
even though it was kind of gross.
Yeah.
But also it was like...
It's a fascinating story, honestly.
Reminds me, do you remember, you watched the movie Pet Sematary, right? The original one?
No. As a matter of fact, I haven't even finished the new one. I think I still have like 30 minutes left in that.
I don't remember if I finished, but the original one had a character in there that was a ghost. Feels kind of similar, like it was just a warning ghost, like, be careful. Now, of course, it's a Stephen King story, so this person was not careful.
Don't lose your head.
Yeah. And it was a head injury, too.
Isn't that the Fallout thing? Don't lose your head? And like the posters or whatever. That's
how you measure the whether you're going to die, or whether you should run.
But wasn't it like the little guy on the poster, and then like the text above it was like, "Don't lose your head" or something like that. There's like a bunch of the posters, but yeah, it's always in the background.
It's hard to keep track of. Like, there's so much in that show.
Great show.
If you haven't watched it, Fallout is a great show.
And if you haven't listened to it, Fallout Boy is a great band.
They're adequate. I can get behind some of their stuff.
Yeah.
But if you want a real, like our genre, Three Body Problem.
That was a great show.
I haven't finished it yet, but it is great.
Should I spoil it for you like you do everything else?
No, I don't spoil any shows.
But you do. You don't think they're spoilers, but anytime someone gives me information on shows, you kill it for me. I'm like,
I got to be careful with that too, because once somebody gives me one thing, it's really simple to figure out the rest.
Yeah, as soon as I'm like, oh, well, there it is. There it is. I saw the thing they talked about. Now it's over. Now it's ruined. Way to go.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I think that refrigerator story was my favorite too. I like how I call it the refrigerator story when that's like the least exciting part of that story is
actually
the fridge.
How often do you wake up and see a disembodied spirit looking for food in your fridge?
Well, it's not disembodied if you can see it. So an embodied spirit.
It's not a real body.
Some would argue that. No. Some would actually argue that it's more real than these decomposing flesh suits that we got on right now. Yes,
no.
The wheels are turning.
No.
The wheels are turning.
The soul is just a visitor into this container for a short period of time. Then it moves on to other places.
Wow. So confident in that. And that's part of the show. You guys know what you get signed up for.
That's part of even your religion. It moves on to other places. It's going to hell. Somebody is.
Yes, of course. Hell magic. I don't know, man. Like I said, these are, as I kind of touched on recently in the previous episode, was that this is like the tip of the iceberg as far as military. So there's so many wild stories out there with active military and just crazy experiences all over the world from where these people are stationed, bases, all that stuff. And in due time, I'm going to put a little bit of separation between this episode and then the next one that's military related. But we are going to be touching on Haunted Okinawa and locations and bases and stuff in Japan, where there are some absolutely bonkers stories that just, and in true Japanese fashion, they're just freaky. You know, they got that weird vibe to them, unsettling. And I'm actually very excited to get into that. But again, probably going to put that on hold for a couple months, maybe, just so people have the opportunity to, you know, not berate us constantly. Like, did this just turn into a military show? And quite frankly, I don't know. Maybe it did.
Depends on if they sponsor us.
Yeah. Sponsored by the U.S. military. Wouldn't that be weird?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's not do that. That sounds horrible. Anyway.
Sponsored by the CIA.
Now, that has been true for some time, but that's neither here nor there. We can touch on that at some different point. Again, just to let you guys know, Volume 7 of Freaky Listener Stories is going to be coming out in the very near future. It is jam-packed to this point, and we've already got Volume 8 probably halfway filled. So if you want your true paranormal experiences and or encounters with the otherworldly included in that, be sure to send it into the gang at thefreakydeaky.com. Guys, we say this every single time these episodes roll out, but these are our favorite stories. These are our favorite episodes to do. And quite frankly, with a show that has the premise of a believer trying to convince a skeptic of the strange things that take place in the world, your stories are actually the ones that kind of maybe move the needle a bit for Christian, because you're our tribe, you know, you're our folks.
Yeah, theoretically, I have to be down with the beliefs of our tribe.
That's right.
Or I get ostracized.
That is very true, and that happens quite often. But if you hear it, like it's a little less removed when we hear it from actual listeners. If people send in and like, this is my story, this happened to me. It's not some random dude on Reddit or Quora or the internet or books. It's me that it happened to, and I listened to your show and I'm sharing it with you. Christian, I see it in his eyes. It's a little spark. It's a little twinkle. And he's like, perhaps ghosts are in fact real. So send those stories in to the gang at thefreakydeaky.com. If you're listening on YouTube and you don't want to go through all the hassle, just comment it. It actually is beneficial in more ways than one. You comment your story, you're contributing your story to a listener story episode, which helps us, but it also tickles the underside of that algorithm, and it gives us a little bit of a boost whenever you get comments going there, likes, the whole nine. And so, yeah, it really does help us. And if that's what you want, if you're a fan of the show and you want to see us continuing to grow and release new shows and new fun stuff for you guys to get weird with, this is the time to do it.
And don't be afraid to tell us what you'd like us to do a show on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we always love getting comments, especially on YouTube. It seems like that's mainly the place you can comment outside of socials, so people can be listening and then comment while they're listening. It's a very beneficial way to get stuff out without wasting time searching up blah 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 whatever. So yeah, if you got episode ideas or whatever, send them in or comment them wherever you're at. Or if you want to get in touch with Christian and I, we are very active in the Facebook group at Freaky Deaky Pod on Facebook. Click the groups, join. It's called like TFT, Paranormally Unexplained, something along those lines. And it's a pretty small tribe right now. We got like we've been hovering around 60 members for a while. But yeah, we've been getting very close knit with our homies. And I've actually we've received enough stories and like talked to these people enough that I have suggested to a couple folks. I think I talked to Marlene about it. I've probably mentioned it to you at some point, but I want to get people that have experiences. It doesn't have to be some big name or anything like that. I want to get like random listeners of the show or people that enjoy our show, and we could do, you know, live episodes or have just episodes with our listeners that have a lot of stories and kind of share those out. But yeah, it's all kind of behind the scenes shit that I'm sure 90% of this podcast audience are like, well, Scott, we quite frankly don't give a shit about that. Just keep telling the stories, huh? So I'm going to go ahead and shut my mouth. And we're going to next week. Christian, do you have anything in the chamber for next week?
I think we're looking at something giant related.
Yes, of course, giant relations.
It's how you go to hell.
Wow. Yeah, just like that, I guess.
You could also get an NBA player that way.
Wow. weird tie-in. But nonetheless, I think that means that it's time to close this bad boy out. Christian, is there anything that you want to end on?
Also, Scott is always right.
Thank you for that. That is always a treat to hear. Christian, is there really anything you want to add on?
Is my boyfriend a demon?
Not now.
Why are we always talking about my boyfriend?
Well, because I like to... You keep him in a closet. I like to shine some light on that bad boy.
I mean...
And he is a bad boy.
My non-existent boyfriend might be a demon.
Ah, yes, of course. Because demons don't exist, right? Bazinga. We got him. He got us. Who cares, honestly? Guys, rate and review the show. If you're a fan, if you're not a fan, just fuck off. That easy. We'll see you next time.